all questions on thyroid to be asked to all the three speakers.
We'll request all the speakers to please come on the dais. Now the floor is open for the question and answers.
Hello. My question is to Dr. Uday. Yeah. What is the maximum dose of T4? And if the dose requirement is high, then is it logic to add T3 supplementation? And is it available commercially?
So by and large, we don't add T3 because of variety of reasons. There is nothing like a maximum T4 dose. Although, once the T4 doses have crossed the usual limits, it obviously means that this patient, there is something wrong, either in compliance or in absorption. And some people do really require large doses because they are malabsorbing thyroxine. So there are a number of things to do. You'll have to run tests. You'll have to look at all the available drugs and see that they're not interfering. Look for celiac disease, stop gluten, check for drugs, and then do a thyroxine absorption test, and sometimes give them thyroxine under your supervision. But a role of T3, in randomized trials also, there has been no benefit of adding T3 drugs. So it still is T4 because in the body, T4 is converted to T3 through the deiodinase. There is no role of additional T3.
For Dr. Bhattacharya, a patient, second trimester patient comes to us whose free T3 is normal, free T4 is normal, but TSH is low, 0.003. In this lady, will you give antithyroid drugs, maybe carbimazole?
Well, in this context, what I would like to see, what is the level of free T4? See, it is a low normal, mid normal, or high normal, and the patient's symptom is there.
No symptoms.
So unless there is a immediate need like atrial fibrillation or osteoporosis, the best option will be to watch. Probably around 6 to 8 weeks time, we need to repeat this.
Okay.
One more question to Dr. Bhattacharya. I have 2 or 3 such patients, as seen by sir. They are having normal free T3, normal free T4. Thyroid scan is showing normal uptake, and TSH is low, 0.01, and it keeps on remaining low for years together. Their cardiac workup done did not show any pathology. Their osteoporosis workup done, there is no osteoporosis. So these people, I have kept them on not on any treatment for years together. There are 2 anti-thyroid antibodies are negative. So no antithyroid antibody.
So basically,
Low
I
TSH.
think as I understood the question, you have patients in whom T3, T4 and FT4 has remained normal for years with low TSH.
Yes.
Without any obvious cause.
Yes.
And it has remained like that for years.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So in such cases, I would do a TSH receptor antibody, especially when
They
you
are
say
negative.
that the scan is showing a relatively normal uptake.
No antibody positivity. Antibody done, no
Well,
antibody.
see the antibody, when you say antibody, you mean a thyroid peroxidase antibody,
No, TSH receptor antibody negative.
is negative.
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 Negative TSH receptor antibody.
Biological variations in TSH can cause this, both low as well as high TSH, and this can be abnormal for a long time. One. Second, with a normal TSH, if T3, T4 are altered, that is then the problem of TBG, where there can be kind of resistance also, and these patients, although throughout life the reports may be abnormal, but do not need treatment. And these patients go to multiple doctors. We've seen at least one patient with 500 different reports with 200 different doctors who treat thyroid, and then they were told the same to the patient. Most of the times it's a counseling that is needed. Just listen to the patient and tell them that this is at the moment does not require treatment. Most of the patients with disorders of thyroid and metabolism are counseling hunger. We just need to give them a year and give them that calm advice.
There's only one small thing which I will add, and there are certain patients, as he said, who crave attention, and there is, as you know, there is something like a Munchausen syndrome. You need to rule out that these people are not actually taking thyroxine surreptitiously. The only way of knowing that is to do a thyroglobulin. If they're taking thyroxine externally, thyroxine production from the native thyroid gland is suppressed, and so will thyroglobulin. So you could check a thyroglobulin level to see that it is not suppressed. If it is suppressed, it means that the patient is actually taking something from outside. And if it is not low, then as he said, you just observe the patient if the patient has no problems.
Thank you very much, sir.
I have a question for Dr. Uday. I see patients who have bad triple vessel disease and they require urgent surgery. And when I do their preoperative workup, the TSH comes to 100. So how do you plan that we should start thyroid hormone to these people?
So there is no problem really in starting therapy. Actually, if they require urgent surgery, you should not wait. Just go ahead with surgery. Your anesthetist and you yourself as a treating physician will need to know that postoperatively this patient may have some problems in electrolyte imbalances. There may be some problems of recovery from anesthesia, CO2 retention, and some excess chances of oozing. So in such patients, you could load these patients on the day of surgery and proceed with the coronary bypass surgery and treat them later. You don't have to wait for them to become euthyroid till you require cardiac surgery.
Normally we put them on 25 micrograms at bedtime. That is what was told. In
25.
25 micrograms at bedtime.
But what will happen with 25 micrograms at bedtime for one day?
We don't want
You
them
will do nothing.
have exacerbation of their angina.
Sorry?
Their angina may worsen.
But the patient is undergoing a bypass surgery, right?
But if they are posted for bypass surgery, we want them to be stable. before-
Peripheral bypass.
No, no,
what?
no.
What bypass?
Cardiopulmonary-
Coronary bypass.
Coronary bypass.
So once the patient is going to undertake a coronary bypass surgery, on the day you can load the patient with 1000 micrograms of thyroxine as well. What's the problem?
Okay.
Or you can start therapy. Hypothyroidism is not an emergency. As long as you watch this patient postoperative for CO2 retention, narcosis, hyponatremia, it's fine. You don't have to delay surgery. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, we don't delay anybody's surgery.
And giving 25 micrograms bedtime prior to surgery is just trying to psychologically say that I did something. It's not going to help
Fine.
in any way.
Currently, even though we have data about nighttime usage of T4, but none of the guidelines say anything about giving it at night time. Although there is some data about give 4 hours after the last meal or whatever. But right now, I think we have to give it the first thing in the morning as told by sir according to those times, and stopping or not having anything for that 30 minutes is very important, including your chai, coffee, nashta, whatever you want to should be taken only after 30 minutes. Now that's the dictum. And as he said, I completely agree with that particular answer. Although in some places the cardiac surgeon himself or herself may not be comfortable by giving 1000 microgram in the start. So in those cases, once the grafts are done, that after that you can immediately give, because the flow of the cardiac from both the arteries are completely taken care. Yes, next question.
Yeah, I wanted to know the utility of weekly dosage of thyroxine instead of the daily regimen.
There is still no recommendation on doing that, although theoretically it works. And in places where the TSH continues to remain high, despite so-called optimal therapy on the part of the patient, you can actually call this patient to the clinic and give him the weekly dose by your hand at one single go. There were tablets of once a week thyroxine. They worked for a time, but then the quality of formulation is not good. Some patients have reported excess tachycardia for the first couple of days after taking this once a weekly dose. So I think it's still open. It's not the thing to do all the time. That's what I feel.
Thank you.
Exceptions are there. For example, patients with psychiatric disorders where you need to give kind of a weekly dose and directly observed in front of the doctor or the staff itself. 1. 2, in conditions like Down syndrome where you know that giving a tablet to a patient may be really difficult. In those cases only, it's a directly observed therapy. However, I think you may have asked this question because there is a study from India itself which came from Kochi last year. Studies have come, studies will be coming, but currently these are the only 2 important clinical scenarios of psychiatry as well as patients where it's difficult to do a DOT. That's why you gave in these patients only weekly. Otherwise, no.
Thank you.
At times, we give radioactive iodine ablation for the patient of thyroid Graves' disease. And after a month, still the levels are high, T3, T4 levels are high. So do you recommend radioiodine ablation, another dose, or drug therapy?
Yeah, this is very practical question. I think what we will do, firstly, statistically, around 90 to 94% of the people, one iodine will be okay. Around 1 to 2% require more than 2, around 5% twice. If you give the second dose, you should not give within 6 months. So what we will do in your situation, we will restart a small dose of an anti-thyroid drug, and over the time of follow-up, we will slowly take it out. Because radioiodine will work very slowly. We are now, our guideline or not guideline, our practice in India is to give a smaller dose because we are following a bit European style. America, they give a big dose. Their typical Mayo Clinic protocol is that give 29.9 millicurie. 29.9 they are picked up because once you get 30, you cannot travel in the public transport because there is a radiation hazard to the other people, public. So they give 29.9, ablate the gland, put on thyroxine. That is their policy. But we follow with European policy. Most of us will be give between 5 and 10 microgram depending on, 5 and 10 millicurie depending on the local practice and expertise.
What happens if you repeat within 6 months?
You should not give the second dose within 6 months. If they require, it should be after 6 months.
So what happens if it is given earlier? They go in hypothyroid?
Well, I think we are producing more chance of developing hypothyroidism. That is the reason.
Sir, coming back to that pre or peri-operative hypothyroid newly patient, is it loading the patient with 1000 microgram of thyroxine? What are the chances of increase in risk of arrhythmias or worsening of heart failure during that time?
So it depends on the severity of the heart disease in the first place. The second thing is that, as he said, once the graphs have been in place, you can give it. There is no problem. And as it is, the whole action doesn't come in one day. What starts is that the FT4 will start to slowly come up in the next 2 or 3 days. If you're worried about 1000 micrograms, give 500. The point that I was trying to make is that if you require an emergency surgery in the presence of hypothyroidism, don't delay it. Go ahead. Nothing will happen if you are careful about electrolytes, oozing, and CO2 narcosis, which the anesthetist can easily take care of if he is vigilant.
What is the current guideline for that? Is there any current guideline, or is this just we practice like this?
So there is no guideline. I think it was a specific question asked by somebody if TSH is more than 100 and it is very emergency to go for a CABG. That's how it was told in that context for an individualization. For guidelines usually say start low, stay low, and then build it up once the angina and the other things subside. This was a different case altogether. There was one more case in the literature where it is said for a pediatric CABG, and if there is a subclinical hypothyroidism, they want the T4 to be up. That is another completely rare indication for giving a high dose in a pediatric stage. But the message outside this hall is not that. The message is start low, stay low, and move ahead, stabilize, achieve euthyroidism. And for such cases, we need to individualize. That's where the endocrine expertise and the hormone expertise would come into play. Thanks.
Thank you. One last question, then we'll close the session.
Sir, you said in thyroiditis you can give small doses of ATD. In thyroiditis, you can give small doses of ATD. Now, what is the criteria
ATD.
of antithyroid drugs? So, what is the criteria based on which you decide which patient needs and who doesn't need? And how long will you wait to decide on whether this patient will need or not?
Yeah, actually, it's very interesting and very practical question. Technically, the reason why their thyroid hormones are high, because their membrane, the capsule is leaky, so whatever form thyroid hormone they are coming out in the blood. So anti-thyroid drug is not needed. But sometimes the levels are very high and patients become panicky, we also become panicky. So sometimes you'll see that we also write a small dose of anti-thyroid drug, but it's not technically or scientifically is the perfect one. But there is no criteria or something. It depends how in front of the person sitting in front of you, how they are behaving. There's nothing guideline or something there. But beta blocker, observation, rest, and if there is, you diagnose a painful thyroiditis, the course of corticosteroid. Those are mainstay of the treatment. Yeah, scientifically, definitely not.
If there are no more questions, we'd like to close the session. I thank all the three speakers for conducting a very good session. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dr. Phadke, Dr. Sheikh, Dr. Bhattacharya, and to our chairpersons, Dr. Kiwalkar, Dr. Nagate, Dr. Meenakshi Kalyan.